This is a model essay on Romeo and Juliet. The essay achieved full marks. The question was, starting with this conversation, explore how Shakespeare presents aggressive male behaviour in Romeo and Juliet. Write about how Shakespeare presents aggressive male behaviour in this conversation, and how Shakespeare presents aggressive male behaviour in the play as a whole. Firstly, it's important to read and annotate the extract provided. This should take about 5 minutes. The following extract is from Act 1, Scene 1 of Romeo and Juliet. You may wish to pause here to explore the extract in detail. At this point in the play, the male servants of the house of Capulet have seen the male servants from the house of Montague, and a fight is about to start. This particular Romeo and Juliet essay is 12 paragraphs long. Throughout the extract and in the play as a whole, Shakespeare presents male aggression through every male character, with the exception of Benvolio. In Act 1, Scene 1 of the play, the servants of the two quarrelling households, the Montagues and Capulets, share a conversation underpinned by male bravado and displays of masculinity. During the 14th century, when the play was set, men had superior status over women, and as a result often showed this by fighting or making sexual puns. By Samson joking how his naked weapon is out before engaging in a quarrel, illustrates the two ways that men, in the context of the play, displayed their masculinity. Similarly, the short sentences dotted with pauses from commas, exclamation marks and question marks as they partake in a duel of words, mirrors the way in which they would physically duel if the law was on their side. By talking in this manner of playful aggression, it is clear that they were accustomed to fighting and violence, as they swapped between puns and light-hearted mockery to insults such as biting your thumb. Gregory and Samson, the Capulet servants who provoke the fray, frown at the opposing men, but state that they will take it as they list, nay, as they dare. The way in which Samson corrects Gregory illustrates how they encourage each other, increasing the tension of the situation and forcing more and more aggression. The noun dare suggests that to react would be dangerous and risky, and to refuse would be cowardly. In the context of the play, a Shakespearean audience would think it a great dishonour to be branded a coward or effeminate. So to those watching the play, the use of the word dare would have been seen as an aggressive challenge proposed by Samson. The effect of this subtle teasing is notably displayed when Abram, a servant of the Montagues, repeats the same questions, "Do you bite your thumb at us, sir?" The syntactical repetition creates the feel of a pulse, as if Abram's heart is racing with anger. It also clearly shows how his aggression is rising towards the two other men. The comma before the pronoun sir indicates that he paused before using the phrase to give it an ironic feel. When spoken aloud, it would have sounded as if he uses the polite phrase mockingly, or perhaps the pause could have been to steady his nerves and calm his obvious aggression. In the entirety of the play, we encounter other characters of higher status who intentionally show the same level and frequency of male aggression as the characters of lower status and wealth do, which emphasises that it was extremely common. Typically, during the Shakespearean era, there were two types of masculinity. The first was self-control coupled with love for a woman, which we see so clearly in Romeo, and the second was violent male patriarchy, which is prevalent in Tybalt, Mercutio, and Lord Capulet in particular. The act of balancing these is ultimately what causes death in the play. Tybalt, the fiery, testosterone-powered, saucy man, is perhaps the clearest example of male aggression, because all of his interactions result in arguments or fatal injury. For instance, we are first introduced to him as he joins the street brawl in Act 1, when the prince and Benvolio attempt to soothe and remedy the situation. Benvolio states "part fools" and to put down their weapons. Tybalt reacts with disgust at the notion of peace. He says he hates the word, which is untrue as he hates the actions that would come about if set into motion between the two families. The hyperbolic phrase that he hates the word only highlights how rage and passionate aggression can cloud thoughts and opinions, especially in the young men in the play. Likewise, in Act 1, Scene 5, when Capulet holds an old accustomed feast to better acquaint Paris with Juliet, Tybalt spots the villain Romeo by his voice and recognises him as a Montague. Due to fierce loyalty and obvious anger, Tybalt is enraged and immediately calls the order, "Fetch me my rapier, boy." The use of the imperative verb fetch shows that in the midst of aggression, he uses authority and power to display his outrage. He holds it not a sin to end Romeo's life on such a small discrepancy as trespassing, which shows how his aggression far outweighs his practical judgment in the situation. Although we see Lord Capulet calm Tybalt, he uses the imperative sentence, "You will not endure him," and refers to Tybalt as boy. The use of the noun boy emasculates Tybalt, making him seem like a child who needs discipline, which annoyed him further. In addition to this, Lord Capulet also displays feverish aggressive behaviour when Juliet ignores his will for her to marry the man of wax, Paris. He refers to her as baggage and threatens that he will drag her through the streets on a hurdle. The use of the word baggage indicates that he thinks she is a nuisance, a weight on his shoulders that is preventing him from entering higher social circles. The use of the word hurdle reiterates this, as although it was a device designed in the Middle Ages to deliver public humiliation, it could also be seen as a metaphor for Juliet. Lord Capulet sees Juliet as something as an annoyance in his path, and as a result his fingers itch at the sight of her. This demonstrates how, despite Juliet being his daughter, he would still express his ferocity through physical violence, something that was not uncommon in the context of the play. Despite the frequent examples of aggressive male behaviour in Romeo and Juliet, the audience also see how this can be diminished through love and tragedy. After the star-crossed, death-fated lovers are announced as dead, the parents of both Romeo and Juliet react with no aggression or anger, as one might expect of men with prior history. Instead, Lord Capulet, perhaps the most aggressive of the two, says, "O brother Montague, give me thy hand." To hold hands is and was a universal symbol of peace, so by suggesting that the heads of the two households would hold hands indicates the aggressive tension is diminished, as if all anger has dissipated from fair Verona, as the light of the fatal lovers was snuffed out. Although Romeo doesn't display much physical aggression, aside from his revenge on Tybalt, Shakespeare does present him as a Petrarchan lover, comparing the battle of attaining Rosalind's unrequited love to winning a battle. She cannot be penetrated by Cupid's arrow, so will not succumb to Romeo's love. In a way, he is emotionally aggressive and volatile, as opposed to demonstrating physical male aggression. If you found this helpful, you may wish to check out some of the links in the description for some other supportive resources.